Hello, Lucy here. I'm trying out a slightly different format for this episode. So while the full conversation is available on our YouTube channel, part 1 here includes a couple of reflection questions and creative tasks. If you're driving or multitasking, you might want to come back to it when you can pause and take part. If you can get involved now, amazing. When you get a chance, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this new approach. Today we're talking about Feng Shui, but not in a rigid rulebook kind of way. It's more of an invitation, a gentle beginning, as you will. Let me start with a few questions that I came to after my conversation with Lorraine. If you're at home now, look around you and consider how you feel in your space. What if your space isn't just where you live, but how you live? What if creating harmony in your space could actually bring clarity? Now, Feng Shui, as I learned through our conversation with Lorraine, at its core is about creating balance and flow. It's not about perfection, it's about intention, purpose, energy, how you feel when you are in your space. If you're curious or you're feeling a little bit stuck and don't know where to begin, I have thought about 2 simple creative tasks to help you dip your toes into the waters of Feng Shui. We don't have to be experts. You just have to be willing to experiment. Right, let's get to the episode. For over 30 years, Lorraine Lewis has helped individuals and businesses transform their spaces through the power of Feng Shui. As a consultant, teacher and speaker, she's guided her clients to make simple yet impactful shifts that lead to real lasting change. Lorraine's signature decluttering method is stress-free, sustainable and designed to keep the clutter from coming back. No more overwhelm, just clarity and calm. Surprisingly, she wasn't always a believer in energy work. Her journey began with a personal shift that changed how she viewed space and self, and now she helps others do the same. Right, let's get to the episode. And I'm intrigued to know why you decided to go into exploring this avenue of Feng Shui.
Total accident.
Really?
Total accident, yeah. Good question, though. It was about 35 years ago. I was an executive on a newspaper, stilettos, suit, the lot. And I was, in a pretty dynamic job, busy all the time. Burned myself out. Was just over 30. Sat and rocked in a corner for a while. Because I was completely burned out. I was doing like 16-hour days and it wasn't good. So somebody asked me, somebody I knew who was having trouble with their restaurant, said, would you take over the restaurant for a couple of months while we find a manager? And I went, no, I'm not interested. And they persuaded me to go and do it. You need to get out of the house, Lorraine. You're spending too much time on your own. Yeah, well, I quite like that. Thank you. Anyway, I went off and I agreed to doing this. And it was all right. I got it going. I got business started to flow in as they started looking for a full-time manager. Only for my birthday, somebody gave me a book about colour because they knew I was interested in interior design, and that I might follow that next type of thing. So I was looking at it, dabbling, if you like, with my own space. And they gave me this book about colour and the psychology of colour. And I thought, yeah, what a load of tosh. And I was just so cynical about everything energy or anything to do with the unforeseen world, the unseen world. I was interested in facts and figures. And so I got into this book and I was thinking, I don't know, does this work? So I started painting the restaurant. And there was a little bar in the restaurant that was used by certain locals. And I discovered that it actually worked. So when I painted, whole place was a beigey, blandy beige when I went. When I painted it a really nice baby blue, sounds a bit mad, but I like the colour. It actually changed the atmosphere. People weren't speaking to each other. They were coming in, but they were reading their papers or being isolated. And I thought, well, that's quite interesting. And because usually they're quite a chatty bunch. So I painted it yellow. And yellow stimulates the intellect. And within 3 weeks, there was a quiz night going. They'd organised, the locals had organised themselves. There were conversations going right, left and centre, and I read a little bit more and I thought, I wonder. So I painted the back of the bar not a sort of tangerine-y, orangey colour.
Yeah.
Warmer kind of colour. And my food sales went up by 40%. They just rocketed because those colours stimulate the digestive system. So I'm now thinking, this is all crazy. How is this really happening? So there was a guy used to come into the bar in the afternoon. It was open through the afternoon for the locals. Restaurant was downstairs, and this guy used to come and read his Sport in Life. Sat on his own mostly, bit of a cross patch. And he happened to be Chinese. And he turned to me one day and he said, "Why are you doing this Feng Shui nonsense?" And I said, "Pardon me." I didn't understand what he meant. And he explained to me that his parents would not move house without their Feng Shui masters say so. And they would not do this. They would not do a seating plan for a party. They would not choose a partner for the family without looking into the Feng Shui. And I thought, oh, here we go again. This is all a load of tosh. Couldn't find any books anywhere. Had to get books through Foyles in London from America. Anyway, I thought, I'm going to have a go at this at home. So I did. Really kind of dipped my toes in it, and it started to work.
When you say it started to work, what did you notice when you started to explore?
First of all, I started sleeping better because guess what? I had a very similar arrangement to a certain person I know who's got wardrobes going above their head.
It's not me.
With a cupboard over your head. And I took it out and started sleeping properly. I also discovered that I was a hoarder. And I kept too much stuff. And I also used to keep stuff under the bed.
Oh, I keep things under the bed.
Yeah, well, I used to keep things under the bed that probably shouldn't have been playing on my mind quite so much. And they were. So old accounting books, old photographs, old memories, all sorts of things. I used to wear stilettos. I never wore flat shoes ever. I'm from a different era to you. Completely. I used to have, nicely arranged shoe compartments under.
Yeah.
And I wore stilettos. So all that pointy stuff under my bed, always on the run. Literally, always on the run. And I suddenly realised I've got to learn this stuff. This is incredible. And because I come from a business background, I used to record. Not record on a microphone, but I would make notes, constantly make notes of when I did some clearing or when I made some changes. And then I'd look at it again in, say, a month's time and see if anything had changed, because otherwise it's really hard to...
You just don't know. Yeah.
I recommend everybody does that when they do Feng Shui or any kind of transformational work. So I realised it was actually making a difference. So I knew I had to learn in more depth. And I was talking to someone at work that night, the day I realised it, and I said, "This is an amazing process. I'm going to design out the window. I want to do this. In the meantime, I'd called somebody, a quite famous Feng Shui consultant, and asked them to come and do a consultation. Now, we could bear in mind that this was way back in like early 90s, early to mid 90s. I had a 2-bedroom flat, but it wasn't very big. And she quoted me £500 to do my flat, which at them, in that we are talking, that would be now about 2.5 grand. And I actually said to her, it's not, not, are you a brain surgeon? I mean, what's the value of this? Is my business coming out? So my friend at work said, why do you want to do this? I said, well, I think everybody should be able to do Feng Shui. And I've always believed that ever since. So I try and make it as accessible as possible. And so I said, I've really got to learn this. And she went, will you stop banging on about this? How much do you need to stop working altogether and learn this? And so I gave her a figure. And 3 days later, that figure landed in my lap.
Really?
Almost to the penny. But my friend who owned the restaurant said, you've got to find yourself a manager now, because I need to go and do this thing. And I went off and I studied for 3 years.
Where did you study? Did you study in the UK, or did you go to China, or what did you do?
Oh, I didn't go to China because actually I'd started learning the Chinese method, and I practiced the Chinese method for some time. But what I did was I joined a society where they brought in teachers from all over the world. And these were teachers who didn't just teach the principles of Feng Shui. They taught about the psychology of clutter. They talked about the psychology of colour, which was, my bag. They talked about shape, texture. They talked about essential oils. They talked about crystals. They talked about earth energies. So ley lines and the electric, how electricity affects us. All kinds of subjects that are woven through a decent Feng Shui practice.
And it must, to go from, as you said, the role that you were doing before to this completely new way of talking, relating to the world, relating to others, relating to yourself. It's like, a huge transformation. What did your friends and family think?
Well, there's a word in the English language called eremission. You've heard it? So it's the fading from the lives of others. And I faded from many lives because they thought I was completely bonkers. My mother, now this is a term you probably won't know because you're a bit younger than me, but my mother asked me if I joined the Moonies. Moonies were a cult, like a religious cult that used to work on young people and get them to give up their worldly goods and go out and get other young people to give up their worldly goods. And it was the Reverend Moon. If you look him up, you'll find that he was a big character. Yeah. And that they were called colloquially the Moonies. My mother thought I'd join the Moonies. I had to work hard to make her realise that I hadn't. I also was doing Reiki at the time. I started doing Reiki at the time because I was so tired and exhausted. I didn't know it was about that. I thought it was about meditation. And I turned up the first Reiki treatment and didn't know it was a course.
Oh.
So lots of little things happened.
Little things have, dropped in.
I tripped over, and that's how come I ended up doing Feng Shui and learning and then teaching and then
consulting as well, and working with groups of people and individuals and working in a corporate space. And it's interesting, I've interviewed a couple of Reiki masters in the podcast series 1. I'll drop you the link if you want to have a little listen to them. But it's when we said at the start of the conversation, things come to us when we are ready. And a lot of the conversations that I've had with the creatives that have been on the podcast, we've talked about chaos and this need to feel like we're in the throes of chaos in order to create. But actually, Feng Shui is about decluttering and kind of packing away all of that in some ways, isn't it? I mean, could you explain a little bit about how decluttering and the Feng Shui principles kind of come together?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, what is Feng Shui? Feng Shui is, they're just two Chinese words. They mean wind and water, which means nothing to us, but it's actually how the world was formed, through wind and water. It's about being protected from the elements. That's why we build houses or lived in caves or whatever we did before. But actually, every single culture in the world has its own form of Feng Shui, and some of the principles are constant throughout. And they only differ where religions or traditions are slightly different. So the reason we call it Feng Shui is because the Chinese recorded it. They recorded everything. They were well educated. The people who did Feng Shui were astrologers, astronomers, they were civil engineers, they were doctors, scientists. And they weren't just one of those things. There were many of those things. They were very intelligent people, and they recorded everything. So in a way, the Chinese kind of owned the Feng Shui world because no one else recorded it really. And in some cultures, certainly in our own culture, things were passed down from female to female, mother to daughter. Things weren't written down. It's law, LORE law. It's our background, and we do things automatically through that. So Feng Shui, the way I describe it is, it's the effect of places and things on people. So it's an outer expression of the inner world. So who you are, if you look around your space, that's directly reflected. It's exactly reflected. So the things that you do, the things that you're interested in, the things that you like. But their effect on you is immense. It's like living in a 24/7 vibrating, pulsating vision board. And the way that I work now isn't the ancient Chinese way at all, because for a number of different reasons. But the reason that it's interesting when you come to talking about creatives is that that space has to support what they need. So there is no point in me going into a creative person's house or a space or their studio and saying, oh, you need to tidy this up. This is terrible. We can't have any of this. Barbara Hepworth would have hung me up and then drawn it.
It's the purpose. It's the purpose, isn't it, in the space?
So first of all, the person, then the purpose, then the Feng Shui. At least that's how I work. Not everybody does. I mean, sometimes the reason people like to hang on to, ancient traditions that are steeped in religions that don't actually have any place in our lives, so you end up with Lucky Charms and things like that. It's because it's a structure, and that's what I was attracted to initially. When you think about who I was attracted to this method and this absolute structure. But now I know that I can blend so many different formats of Feng Shui together and come up with something that suits that person and suits their purpose and will alleviate the issues that they currently have. Now, the reason that clutter's so interesting is because people they can hoard stuff and they can hang on to stuff, but they don't actually realize what that thing means to them. So they don't regard it. The problem is that clutter is invisible junk. We live in kind of these invisible junkyards because we no longer see it. We no longer feel the vibration of the object, but actually the body and the psychology of the person is affected by it.
On a very deep cellular level. I mean, I'm thinking now, so as you know, obviously I'm renovating, and so we've had a little bit of work done recently, and there's been quite a lot of stuff that's been brought back into the house from the garage. I'm talking memory boxes, I'm talking old clothes that we need to get rid of. We have a little one, so we've got baby clothes and toys that have migrated back into the house, and it's quite an open space downstairs. We've got quite a large entranceway, but it's full. It's full of stuff. It's full of boxes. My other half paints Warhammer, so he's got all of his painting stuff there. And although when I come into the house, this is supposed to be the space where I go, but instead I had to going, why is all this stuff still here? I can't move forward. And I'm sure there'll be people listening today that be thinking the same thing. I've got stuff in the conservatory, the kitchen, the place really that I've got stuff tidied away more often than not is the lounge or the kitchen, because I can put things where they need to go. And I'm sure people will feel this as well.
It feels like you have control there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are ways to ameliorate all of that. And remember also that untidy doesn't mean clutter. Untidy means I live here.
Yeah.
The amount of time that I've turned up at somebody's house to do a Feng Shui consultation and I can hear the Hoover and somebody saying, she's coming,
Quick,
she's
get the
early.
duster out.
And of course, when I walk into a pristine house, it takes a bit longer for me to get a measure because I need to see in those cupboards that they shoved stuff in.
How does your creative process start? You're turning up to somebody's house. What are you looking for?
Well, first of all, I turn up at somebody's house these days, mostly online, but it's easier for them. And actually, people find it less intrusive because they imagine that I can't see as much. Wrong. But I can still feel it. I can still get I still get the essence of it. And I always start with the person. So I simply open to what are they telling me? So I use my ears, I look at body language, and I'm interested more than anything at the beginning, well, obviously right through, but my first encounter with somebody is about what do they need? What's the issue here? Because they may call me and say, oh yeah, we've got money issues. And I get to talk to them and it's not money at all. It's something entirely different. Or there'll be a cause that they haven't thought about to do with their money, or they'll be blocking it in some way. Or they're in a habit of thinking they haven't got enough money. They just haven't realised that actually they're doing all right. And so sometimes this is the interesting thing about energy. Sometimes we get stuck in a pattern. And our places help to perpetuate that pattern. So because you've got a situation where you've got things coming in and out of the house that you've had in your house before and then were in the garage, they weren't in your life. As far as you were concerned, not here, not my issue at the moment. I'll deal with that when. But now they're starting to trickling through the house. They're affecting you. I'll bet you any money that you walk through that house in a different way than you used to before that stuff arrived. So whereas you may have come in with your chin up and you're thinking forward, swinging your arms and feeling a little bit more fancy free, now your energy is caught by things that are stuck in your hallway that you see instantly. and down comes your energy. And what happens when your energy comes down is your eyes cast down, your chin cast down. You stop receiving from the mothership because you're
That's
not
it, the higher
getting,
energy.
you're not aligned to the heaven and earth. And so, which what might sound a bit crap to some people, but excuse my French, but it's, it's so
Love it.
important
Yeah, it is.
that, to be grounded and aware. And if you've got things around you that are just dragging you back, and that's where they stay, we create that pattern and we create that energy. And so we get stuck and we can't see it anymore.
Because they can just guide you through it, each room, and then you're looking at, the layout of the room, I suppose, and the textures or the colours that they're using.
What's interesting also is that I give them an exercise to do, which is don't go tidying up and stuff. Just leave the place as it is. Go and take some still photographs. Because still photographs tell a story much better than a moving video, because it's a snapshot of, so take a photograph of where you sleep. Take a photograph of your front door, both looking out and looking in. Take a photograph of your hallway. So if you think about it, you spend a lot of time asleep. I tend to concentrate around front door and hallways because that's where all the energy comes into the house. So at first we recognize and try and pull in really nice positive energy. But then if it comes to the house and it all goes, what's the point?
Honestly, Lorraine, I did take a picture of my hallway this morning because I thought I'm going to send it to you because it is just, there's bikes, the scooters, there's the desk. Those people that are listening, I'm going to suggest that you do this. Go and have a look around your house and take these photographs and just look at the space that you're in, because you will start to acknowledge actually what is in your space and what you are holding on to and what's, blocking you.
Yeah, what you're putting in your way, literally.
Creative task 1. If you can, grab a piece of paper and draw a simple 3x3 grid. This will represent the Bagua, a traditional Feng Shui energy map. Imagine each square corresponds to a part of your home. So loosely map it out. Top left might be your wealth area. The centre is health. The bottom right might be relationships. I'm going to post a Bagua map on my social media. So once you've done that, take a moment to reflect on these 2 questions. Question number 1. Which area of your home feels vibrant, alive, or taken care of? And question 2 is, which area or areas feel neglected or heavy? And I think noticing is the first step. Awareness creates space for change. Creative task number 2 is the one object shift. So choose one room in your home. It doesn't matter which, just pick the one that's calling for attention. You may choose to go and stand in this room if you have time. Look around and find one object that feels like it no longer belongs. Maybe it's broken, or it's dusty, or it carries old energy, or it just doesn't make you feel good. Don't overthink it, just remove it. Then replace it with something intentional. Now, this might be a candle, a plant, a photo of someone that you love, or even a simple note to yourself. But that one object can really shift the entire energy in the space. Once I'd recorded the episode with Lorraine, I actually went out and I did wash my front door. I bought myself a new welcome mat. And it's funny because just with that small change, I do feel like I'm more aware of the energy that's coming in and out of the house. So maybe try that as well. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, then don't forget part 2 drops this Thursday. If you do try any of these creative tasks, I would love to hear how it goes. So send me a message, tag me on socials with the Wilderness of Creativity, and leave a comment on Substack. Your stories are what keeps this space alive. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, take care of your space, and stay wild.